I am looking over your narrative lesson plans and have some feedback for you. So for the most part, definitely, the desired, scrolled too fast, I'm sorry. The desired results section is very nicely, tightly aligned. I like that, so it's really clear what the students are expected to do, and I think that your assessments are also really well aligned. I especially liked that in the formative place, that you are giving them some limited options to generate ideas instead of telling them they have to do just one thing. So I really like those pieces so far. Okay, all right. In your learning plan. Okay, so here we've got the hook. So you've got students describing a picture, and then draw a line under it, and then write a story about the picture. Okay. The transition to this, I think, is a missed opportunity, the transition from the hook into the direct instruction, because you have them go from describing a picture into, now stop, now write a story about that picture. And there's no purpose behind this. You say, we'll be starting to write stories, also known as narratives. I want you to take notes on what narrative writing is before I give you an assignment sheet and allow time for us all to plan our stories. Instead of explicitly hooking back and saying, okay, what is the difference between describing and storytelling? And so it's a real missed opportunity. And up here, I saw that you had this global essential question of why do people tell stories, but I didn't see that addressed anywhere in the lesson plan. So pull these pieces from here into your hook. Pull the pieces from your hook into your direct instruction, okay? And to smooth out those transitions a little bit, okay? Also, the next piece I want to note on here is that you have a really solid fluency here, and I really like that. We're going to start writing narratives. Let's learn about what narratives are. You're writing on the board, rather note-taking. You're very clearly labeling first this, now that. So the flow of it is really well done. I think it's easy for the students to follow what you're saying and as you transition through. The piece I want you to think about is Doug Lemov's double planning technique, okay? Make yourself a student in this class. Your teacher stands at the front and says, I want you to do this. I will give you this. I want to talk about that. Those are very different. Now this is subtle, but this is that place of building culture in the classroom, right? Instead of I want you to do this, I want you to do that. I'm going to give you this. What about some more we language? You have it right here. We will be starting to write short stories. But what about a little bit more purposeful here, a little bit more collaborative here, saying that, I want you guys to be really successful in writing narratives. I know that we watch narratives in movies. I know that we read narratives in books. But I think that the more we begin to kind of take those pieces apart and see how narratives are done well, I think that'll help us be better writers. So think about the difference between something like that versus something like this, okay? Secondly, so you write on the board, protagonist, antagonist, conflict resolution, supporting characters. And then you just say first, I want to talk about the protagonist. It's one of the main characters. Can you guess what an antagonist is? Slow down right here, okay? This is all you talking. Instead of saying, checking for understanding. So has anyone heard the word protagonist before? Okay, so maybe a few of you had. Has anyone heard the word main character before? Okay, great. So protagonist and main character are really the same thing. And the reason we want to think about the protagonist first is because this is the person that we want our readers or our viewers to connect the most with. When that protagonist hurts, we want our audience to hurt. When that protagonist is excited, we want the audience excited. So that's one of the reasons why we think about that kind of a character first. Now, the flip side of protagonist is antagonist. And this I love. You've asked them a question, and then you talk about it, okay? Do not trash supporting characters like this. They're just what they sound like. They support or help other characters. No. Right? Supporting characters are there to really, because, think about it. A foil is often a supporting character of a protagonist that highlights the differences between another supporting character of a protagonist. And you may not want to delve into that, but Don't throw it away so easy like this. Ask them questions. Who in your life supports you? Okay, mom, dad, friends, blah blah blah, boyfriend, blah 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 blah. Excellent. So all those people are supporting characters, and why do you think we call them supporting characters? Because they support us, right? And what are ways in which they support us? Oh, they encourage, they this, they that. Excellent. So you're going to want characters in your story who do those things for your protagonist. Do you see the difference between this back and forth between where do you live? Let's pull that out and label it. Let's talk about it. Good. Next piece. Where do you live? Let's pull that out. Let's label it. Good. Next piece. So that I've got some real back and forth between listening to my students and then instructing my students. Listening to my students and instructing my students instead of just this whole big block of you running through this quickly. Okay? In your model, you kind of run through the same thing. You have this huge, I see that you've bulleted it out, but the fact of the matter is, it is nothing but you talking from right up here at the top, all the way through to here. And all you're doing is telling them, I'm going to have Danny. She's going to be here. She's going to do this. She's going to discover that. Then there's going to be Ty, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's all surface plot level, and you're not talking to them about how you're making these decisions, why you're making these decisions, where these ideas come from. And the fact of the matter is, that's the kind of thinking you're going to want them to demonstrate. And so, because we don't want to create little copies of ourselves, right? I don't want kids who are like, oh, I changed the name Danny to Tanny, and I changed the name Ty to Lie. You know what I mean? Like, kids are going to do that because they won't know what else to do because you didn't walk through a thinking process. All you did was show them your end product, okay? Go back to that metacognitive piece. Think about why you're doing these things and make this an actual think aloud, not just a production of a product, okay? I hope that makes some sense. So let's look at the other pieces of your lesson plan. Okay, so this is the narrative pre-writing lesson plan 2, the character development one. And by the way, I really like the flow of this, from the first lesson plan to the second lesson plan, whereby first you have them think about plot, then you have them think about character and character motivation to help them understand how the character is going to move through their story. So I like that a lot, okay? So journal prompt, again, like what influences your character's actions, and having students share out. I'm not sure why you have them share out. If you're having them share out for a particular reason, you want to elicit certain types of responses from students, have some planned Q&A right there so that, anticipated answers, X, Y, and Z, and then your responses to those answers would be, good, I like that answer because it specifically addresses blah, or let's see if we can develop that answer a little bit more to include blah, so have that one planned out a little bit. Otherwise, it's have 4 to 5 students share without really any purpose. Again, your direct instruction, kind of like your last one, it's all you talking at your students. I don't know what students are to be doing while you're doing your direct instruction. If they're supposed to be taking taking notes, stories, because you're talking about story writing. If they're supposed to be taking notes or what. So you say each character has different motivations, and then you go, each character, you find in books and movies, has motivations. You don't expect to see this, all right? But instead of you having that back and forth flow, in other words, you say, can you think of some characters in books or movies where you totally understand, like, oh my gosh, this person did that thing because of this reason? And see if they can't tease some of that out, because they probably can. I mean, Harry Potter, gathers Hermione and Ron about him because he's lacking in self-confidence. Like, yep, pretty straightforward, you know what I mean? So have a little bit of back and forth with your students, so you're building upon their existing knowledge instead of being the holder of all of that knowledge, okay? So again, you talk about reader-writer contract, but my concern with this is that you say if you're writing in a particular genre, it's brand new information to them. You didn't prompt them to think about genre before. You didn't talk about analyzing different structures of genres. You didn't ask them to think about different genres, nothing. And so throwing this in direct instruction is throwing a really content-specific word at your students that they may or may not know, and then you hang everything on that. Depending on your genre, your reader has certain expectations, they can expect certain character developments, but your kids aren't going to be able to follow you through that, not because they're dumb, but because you didn't tell them that that's a piece and a component to their writing that you want them to pay attention to, nor did you give a purpose to that, okay? So I've got a misalignment issue right there, right? I really like your character card template things below. I scrolled down and looked at those, and those are good. It asks students to think through physical as well as characteristic attributes, and those are really good. The one thing I want to push you for is you want them to tie. The whole goal of this lesson is who's a character, how does that influence what this character does or doesn't do, how this character talks or doesn't talk, etc. But your character card only has them describe the character traits, not draw anything from that character trait into a motivation area. Let me scroll down and show you what I was looking at. Okay, so I've got age and gender. Those things matter, okay? Let's take me and you. That's a good example, right? So, like, 39-year-old female mother of two. You just already have some assumptions about me, about how I'm going to act, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say. And so age and gender, how does that influence character? Versus, I don't know how old you are, Mara. I'm going to guess 22, okay? Right? Like 22-year-old female, how does that influence characters, right? So likes and dislikes, so what, right? Likes reading and drinking coffee, hates spiders, therefore, loves to read spooky stories, but totally gets freaked out by the thought of going into a spooky house. I can see a little plot developing from that, where character has a problem, like, I don't know, friends dare her to go to a spooky house because she reads spooky stories. You know what I'm saying? Push your students to not just describe, but to do the so what factor in this. Okay, so here's your narrative actual writing. Again, good alignment. I like your choice of evidence outcomes. I like your choice of evidence outcomes here. I think they are the right choice, and that demonstrates to me that that you're paying attention to those standards and that you're putting the right standards for what it is you want your kids to be doing. And so I think that's very nicely done. Again, I'm seeing no differentiation or modification. I've been looking for that in the last couple lesson plans, and that's concerning to me because you need to be having those pieces in there and thinking about students who are reticent writers, students who, maybe advanced writers. There's all things that you can think about, but I want to see you thinking about those. I want to see what your thoughts are, okay? So you skipped from the hook. You skipped the hook and went right into direct instruction. So in other words, it's 7:15 in the morning, the bell rings, teacher stands up and says, there are 3 main ways to start a story that I want you to know about. Kind of a flop right there. I worry that students would maybe engage, maybe not engage. If they are interested in writing their stories, they'll listen to you, but if not, maybe not, right? Don't skip that hook part, even if it's super brief, even if it's just saying something like, have you guys ever had that moment where you set a book down, at not a time you wanted to set it down, or like you had to pause a movie because someone interrupted you, and then you totally feel like, oh my God, like I left those characters hanging. I have to get back to them. What are you doing? And then even poke some fun at yourself as like a nerdy English person. Be like, I totally feel that way sometimes. Like I feel really bad. Oh my God, I left that character in the middle of the jungle and I don't know what's going to happen next. That's how I'm feeling today. Like we've got these characters. Let's put them into action. Let's give them something to do. They're sitting around bored right now on your cards. Even if it's something cheesy like that, you could do that, all right? And again, you have this statement, I want you to know about, instead of this statement that says, that undergirds, right, that I care about you and I want to help you succeed. Reword these things and say there are 3 main narrative starting techniques, and I want to explain those to you guys so that you can be making the best choice for a start of a story, depending on who your character is, what you're thinking, right? Like, I want to give you guys some options to help you really be stronger, more effective writers. Those are it's the exact same thing that you did, but it's with that undergirding of critical pedagogy. I don't hold the power. I have some information that's going to help all of us grow together, okay? So you say that, let's start with in the middle. Give them the literary term for that, okay, in medias res. This technique is used in mystery stories. Here's what you do with it. Okay, why? Why is that technique used in mystery stories? And Mara, you know why, right? Because it builds suspense. Because you see this crazy thing happen, you're like, oh my God, what happened? Ooh, good question. Let's go see. Right? It builds mystery. It builds discontent in the reader, and then the writer goes and solves that discontent. Okay, good. You just say, here's what it is, here's how you do it, use it with mystery. Next, okay? Instead of giving them the credit of wanting and needing and expecting them to understand why. Then you say that I can start a story introducing a character, I can start a story with an introduction of setting. Again, no why behind that. I don't know why I would choose one of those 3. I'm just going to randomly choose one, I suppose, and get started, okay? Again, your model is you showing them a product. It's not a think aloud, okay? I don't know why you chose this starting. I don't know why you stopped your description there. I don't know why you made these kinds of choices, and you want kids to be able to see that, okay? Okay, so my comments are getting lengthy here, and I want to stop. And so look at those comments and see, and then you go ahead and evaluate yourself for your revision plan. I looked over it, and it's just some of my comments are the same. Did a little bit better with the back and forth in those, and I like that, and I want you to look at that and recognize it and replicate it, okay? Let me know if you've got any questions.